Hello everybody, thanks for coming back for another one of Leeds Helpful Tips live streams. Today's live stream is going to be all about our most exciting thing ever, our universal holder, and our other variations of it too. But before we begin, just a couple quick comments. This is a live stream, so again, we're coming to you live from Minneapolis, but because it's a live stream, sometimes things happen. So the internet connection may go out, my lights might stop working, I don't know, other crazier things have happened. If that does happen, please bear with us and I'll bring the stream back. Also, one of the cool things about doing these live streams through YouTube is that if you're comfortable logging in with your Gmail or YouTube account, you can actually post questions directly in the chat window over to the right. And then I'll look at it every once in a while and fill it out to answer the questions to the best of my ability as I see them. There's a bit of a delay, so I'll pause at the end just to make sure nobody has questions. So, and then one other thing before we begin, I hinted at it a couple live streams ago, maybe a month and a half ago, but we're finally putting together our very first Evo Finder extensively focused live stream, and that actually starts tomorrow at 1 p.m. as well. And that's what we're calling Evo Found. So tell your friends, check it out. Neil's going to be giving that presentation himself tomorrow, but it should be another start of another really cool kind of tips and tricks, but that are specific around the Evo Finder and just kind of these educational videos. So Leeds Helpful Tips, the whole goal of these are to have interesting content and interesting videos our examiners can watch, ask questions, that type of thing. And our goal with these helpful tip videos is to cover the breadth of our equipment with topics that will hopefully help people with their day-to-day casework. All right, enough of that. Let's talk about the universal holder. So this is the universal holder. I'm just going to make sure I'm in the right focal plane here. Yep, there we go. This is the universal holder. It will be familiar to a lot of our, essentially all of our firearm comparison microscope customers, whether they're using an LCF3 or whether they're using one of our discovery systems. But essentially, this really is truly a universal holder. It's designed to hold anything. I always get it wrong, but I think what I can safely say is it can hold anything from a 20,000th gauge wire with these little jaws all the way up to a 10 gauge shotgun shell without needing any extra holders or attachments or anything like that. So the way it works is it's got these jaws that you can see right here, and they're spring loaded. So if I go ahead and open and close them, you can see how they actuate. And then you also can see that there's a little plunger right in the middle, so you can put large things in there. So that's where that is helpful for like those large shotgun shells and things like that. You're probably also noticing, and this is something that maybe a lot of our customers might not know about, but you're seeing that as I'm adjusting this holder, I'm just able to let it go and it stays in position. And the way it's doing that is our universal holder uses wave washers. And so when you move into position, it's not a grease system, so it's not going to be hardening over time. You can just move it, you can move it, and then it's a single finger tighten, and then that'll lock it in place if you get any of that like little bit of wobble when it's kind of loose. But that's the idea, is that you can just very easily move it around. It'll keep that position using the wave washers, but if you want to lock it in, you can just go ahead and lock it down, which is kind of nice. The jaws themselves, like I mentioned earlier, are made of a self-lubricating plastic, machinable plastic called Delrin. And the idea is that it's softer than brass, so we're not going to be leaving tool marks on your tool marks. And so what it allows us to do is if we take oh, look at that, I happen to have a 50 BMG cartridge case. Well, what a quinky dink. It allows us to hold from our outer diameter with the jaws like this, and you can see how I'm pushing in that plunger, so it's holding that position. So you can hold it from the outer diameter. You can also spread the jaws like this, and then there's a little locking screw right here. So you can spread the jaws, tighten that locking screw, and that will hold the jaws open. So you can actually use that to hold from the inner diameter of the cartridge case. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. We're going to place it on there. It's a really big cartridge case, so you really want to press out against the inside diameter. So you just press it flush, squeeze. I'm going to, because it's so large, we're going to go ahead and do that. so it doesn't flop around on me. And I think that's going to work, yeah. So then you can hold it from the inner diameter. And so this can be really good for looking at chamber marks, magazine lip marks, things like that, which can be really helpful. Hopefully you're not seeing too much casework involving 50 BMG, but you do have that ability. So to undo it, I'm just going to go ahead and loosen that. So now these jaws can fully actuate. And then the other place we can hold things from, I'm just going to try to tip it so you can see it easier. We've made videos, you can watch our training videos on YouTube about the universal holder specific, but I just want to show this feature because some people haven't known about it. But you'll see that there's these little cuts on our jaws of the holder. And these little machined indentations are there for the extractor groove. So you can actually place the cartridge case and you can actually hold it from the extractor groove. And then you can just rotate to look for marks, extractor marks. So very helpful. And again, the universal holder is designed to hold that position. And you'll see as I'm moving it along this C shape, this portion right here is staying at the same height relatively. And so that is going to stay relatively in focus as you're manipulating the specimen, moving it around, that type of thing. So that's this universal holder. Like I said, we have other videos too that are specifically about the universal holder that show more mounting options, things like that. For example, we have a video that goes into how the pin mounts work, that type of thing. But that's just the basic universal holder. And this is what we saw on essentially all of our comparison scopes, even our highly specialized Toolmark comparison microscopes, which are primarily made for Toolmarks. And this is the Mega holder. It's giant. This is scale to the cartridge case, but then here's also the scale to the universal holder itself. So let me just kind of place these next to each other. So yeah, it's quite large. It's we're real creative with their naming. So we call it the Mega holder. And essentially the idea is one of our customers that did a lot of work with Toolmarks put in a specific request that they wanted to be able to look at some really large like cables and things like that, like pipes and things. So that's where we came up with the Mega holder. So it'll look very familiar from what we just talked about with the universal holder. It's got this giant, these giant jaws, essentially, that will wide open. When it goes through its final QC and final manufacturing, it'll actually fit these jaws better. Like I said, this one was just being worked on. But allows us to hold some things that are quite large. So you can hold it from, again, that extractor groove. You can pass through a whole pipe. You can pass through a whole cable, that type of thing. And again, just like the universal holder, it is slotted. So this whole thing will actually go directly on your microscope stage. So then you can use it and work with it. So not necessarily a universal holder, but it's the same vein. This is what we call our ball pivot vise. It is a ball pivot vise. And the idea is let's say you're working on gun parts, or you're trying to look for the tool marks that your gun parts are on your gun parts that are going to impart markings on your actual fired evidence, or you just want to inspect things that are large, like tool marks evidence. You have a ball pivot vise. And what's nice about this is, again, any of the plastic that's going to be touching your evidence is made of that self-lubricating machinable plastic Delrin. So this is actually softer than brass. So the goal there is it won't leave those tool marks. So yeah, you can adjust it, you can tighten it down. If you have something that's really heavy, there's a little clutch mechanism here. So it's very loose right now, but then you can tighten it down if you have a large part, and that will add stiffness to it. This is a grease system, so we'll want to do preventative maintenance. It'll be part of your preventative maintenance. But yeah, simple. There is another version of this that came from customer feedback, and it's actually even bigger. We didn't call it the Mega Vise. Maybe we should have called it the Mega Vise, but it's a much larger vise. And essentially, instead of having, I think this one maybe has 3 inches or 2.5 inches of travel in this direction, I'm calling it the Mega Vise, it has maybe about 6 inches. And again, it's centered here. It's centered right in the middle. So when you close the jaws down, your object stays in the center of what you're trying to clamp. So that means when you tip things, you're not having to readjust focus or do big stage movements, that type of thing. Last but not least, to show, and again, it's not a universal holder, but this one kind of ends up being a universal holder. This is our ball pivot stage. It's again one of our most commonly sold Toolmark holders. I'll actually back up. The ball pivot vise is also exceptionally commonly sold. I would say, man, 75 to 80% of the systems we sell come with these Toolmark holders. And they're swappable between systems, which is nice. But yeah, so this is our ball pivot vise, or ball pivot stage. And again, it's got a similar mechanism to the vise, and it's got this clutch that you can loosen or tighten, depending on how heavy your evidentiary items are. But you can tip it, you can rotate it. It's got this little spring clip that's designed, it's made of steel, so it will scratch your evidence, so be careful with that. But yeah, you can lock it down, you can hold things there. It also comes with some rubber pads, sort of contrast that you can place on it. Sometimes though, what I'll often see in a lab that's doing a lot of Toolmarks is they'll either be using this little clip, or what they'll have done is just put a bunch of Boulet's magic wax right on the stage itself, and then just stuck things to it. So that is an option there too. And again, you can see, let me put that clip back, you can see it's got those cutouts. So again, this whole thing simply just goes on your stage, and then you can move around, you can do all the measurement you want, made to be really easy to use. That's essentially it. Just going over some of our more popular universal holder options and variants. One of the neat things at Leeds is we keep using feedback, and we keep making small changes and rev changes to virtually all of our products. The universal holder that you have on your microscope might actually look a little different than this one. And that's just because we keep using that feedback, and we keep trying to make it better with small little iterations. So yeah, if you have any questions about the holders, what's nice is they're all swappable with any of our systems in the field, regardless of how old the microscope is. Please feel free to contact me, jkurth@leedsmicro.com, or yeah, just let us know. All right, hopefully this has helped, at least, and maybe if you already have these holders and you haven't used them before, it gives you something to think a little bit about. Thanks for watching. Jake Kurth with Leeds. Please tune in to Neil's Evo Finder-centered tips and tricks video that's going to be going tomorrow at 1 p.m. Central Time. And until next time, I'm Jake with Leeds. Thanks for watching.